Hopefully, we have time to get to everyone. So I do apologize about that. Had some stuff going on with the old dog. Okay, so let's jump into it right here. We're going to start with quarterbacks as we always do. Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, Josh Emmett, Jordan Love, all these guys, I think there's no question. I think it will be interesting to see how Darnold does against Detroit, see if he still has all that magic. It's interesting seeing Gino being bumped up to QB7. Overall, he's been player 9, so not shocked. Just, people tend to have been down on him. Baker Mayfield, I know this is the game that people are looking forward to. I'll tell you, I'm shocked to see Baker this low as he's a player number 2 overall. And Baltimore's D, the only reason why I think people keep thinking it's so tough and so strong is because it's like a legacy defense. But I would have Baker up here securely towards the top 5. Brock Purdy versus Kansas City, that is the one I'm worried about. Kansas City has a very tough defense, so we'll see how that goes. Kirk Cousins, again, I would have him strongly in the top 10. Stroud, it's going to be an interesting game for him. Yes, sir. Baker in the top 5, Jacob. Completely agree. Completely. CJ Stroud. It's going to be an interesting game. As long as Jair and all the Packers secondary is healthy, it's going to be tough on him. So we'll see if he can make the adjustments and reads. This is the one I talked about in my start sit video yesterday. Patrick Mahomes. I'm not having him this high, guys. I'm probably having him, towards the bottom here. We'll do the cutoff like we did last time. I'm going to make the cutoff Herbert for a reason. So Patrick Mahomes, I'd have lower. Kyler Murray, I know that Harbaugh's done a great job with that defense. So I'm definitely kind of curious how he adjusts and does. Anthony Richardson. I just don't know what to think of him. I get it. His rushing upside is tantalizing, but he will not have Jonathan Taylor. So I have him as a sit. Jared Goff, definitely have him as a start. Drake May, it's not as bad as people have been thinking, so we'll see. I know he's in game in London, which that London game, Brian Thomas, Tank Bigsby, a little bit of a coming out party, so that's great. And then Andy Dalton, I think against an average defense, he's definitely startable. And the reason why I had it down to Justin Herbert is because Herbert is what I like to consider the drop this week line. And Herbert, I'd have a little bit higher. I think he'll end up in the top 15 this week based on the fact that Arizona's defense is trash. Herbert just 2 years ago was considered a top 5 quarterback. He still has the arm talent, and he's starting to come together with his position players. So I like him higher. Any questions you guys have, just pop it in. We started a little bit later, so I'm going to rush through some of these. Next, on to running back. Kyron Williams, number 1 against Las Vegas. I think that's definitely an easy case to be made because Las Vegas is just a dumpster fire with a tire fire mixed with a train wreck. Derrick Henry, love him this week. Saquon, let's get down to first one might be questionable. Joe Mixon, the Packers defense, legit, okay? Packers defense right now has been the number 2 fantasy defense. So I'll be curious to see how we hold up against a good running back. Saquon is interesting. I agree. Saquon versus the Giants. The Giants do have a pretty good defense, and we'll see how they hold up. I think the key is just the fact that the the Eagles have so many weapons that it does create those lanes for Saquon Barkley, but he is interesting. Dobbins, I'm glad he's come back healthy. I was able to scoop him up on some waiver wires and stuff. It's been exciting to see. I hope he stays healthy. As long as he does, he's a top 10 running back for the rest of the year. It is. I mean, he's also only 25 for those of you out there in Dynasty that might need a trade for someone. Brees Hall, we'll see how it is. I think the trade for Adams, I said, will open up those running lanes. Moving on, Kamara, I mean, we saw in the game on Thursday what happens when he doesn't have a QB and they key up on him. Pollard has been very, very good. Buffalo's D has been about average, so I have no problems with that. Moving down to Jordan Mason with the same thing that I said about Patrick Mahomes. that the Kansas City Chiefs defense is tough, guys. Jordan Mason's going to get the volume. They know how to run the ball there, but I would be scared if you have better options like Dobbin or someone like that. Jameer Gibbs. It's interesting. It seems like they always have Montgomery and Gibbs together. Definitely would start both of those. Brian Robinson, if anyone hasn't seen yet, he is good to go. He's kind of become a true bell cow, which we love for fantasy purposes. All right, we're going to move down to the next group. Let's see here. I would say the break is probably down to Singletary. So James Cook, it'll be interesting to see if they give Davis a little bit more love. I think, it might be a 70-30 where you start to see Davis get worked in a little bit more, especially with how explosive he was last week. Kareem Hunt, definitely just a true volume guy. So if you need to start him, I would, but it's just based on volume at this point. A-Chain, we'll see what he can do. I mean, when he gets some space, he's been able to run, but since they lost Tua, it looks like there's just not any room for him to run. Tanks Bigsby having a monster game right now for him, kind of a breakout. Same with Brian Thomas. Love both those guys. Chase, I will talk about Chase. Chase, I think you should be moving into top 20. I think he has that role pretty well locked down. So Chase is someone I'd have in top 20. On the flip side, Najee Harris, I'd have him lower against a very good Jets defense. He's a plotter. What he did against the Cowboys, everyone's done against the Cowboys, but he's just a plotter. Just doesn't have that explosiveness. Moving down, Madison, I can see if you really need him as a flex play. They have Bucky Irving down, but I still think with Bucky being the power guy, he'll still get his share. I think the split is between White and the guy who broke out last week. Sorry, that's slipping me. All right, Tyler Algier. Jacob on the team's been very big on him. I think he's definitely a flex option against the Seahawks. Trey Sermon, again, just a volume guy. Don't really know what to tell you other than if you have to play him, you can, but I don't love him. Tracy and Singletary, I think it'll probably be a true split. So we'll see how that plays out. Raheem Mostert is probably the guy who gets a lot of those dirty yards, which is what you like, especially when you get near the goal line. Moving down, see if there's anyone else here in this bottom area that you need to be considering. Sean Tucker. That's who will probably be splitting with Rachaad White. That's what I was thinking of. Again, Ray Davis. I think he'll get a decent share. I think they start working him in a little bit better. So I wouldn't completely drop him. I think in deep leagues, he has some appeal still. Same thing with Braylon Allen. All right, on to the next position. All right, we will do the wide receivers. Justin Jefferson, at this point, he's proven he just needs any human back there to throw him the ball. I mean, I could be back there and he will be a top 10 wide receiver. So it's fantastic to know that you can just always trust him. Jamar Chase, Cleveland has a good secondary. I would have him a little bit lower. Malik Neighbors, loving this spot. Philly has a trash secondary. AJ Brown, I mean, they have him down and he's number 4. I think he's definitely in the top 10. My arrow's not down on him. Let's see if we have anyone else in this area. Godwin, interesting they have him this high. I love Godwin, for anyone who knows. Him coming out of the slot, helping. DK Metcalf, hopefully he starts catching the balls and not having so many penalties. I mean, DK is getting the volume, but the points just don't seem to be there. Debo on the other side, the points are there and he's not getting as much volume. So those two are kind of opposite each other, but I do like them. Reed, we'll see how he does against Houston. I'll be interesting if they kind of double coverage him and take away what has become the security blanket for Love. Mike Evans, I don't know if I can have him as number 11. I mean, he's been getting the touchdowns and everything, but I would probably have him a little lower, maybe down here in that 20 range. That's kind of how I feel. Stephon Diggs, as long as Nico Collins is out, he's secure in the top 15. T. Higgins, as I said last week, he's in the most first read options from Burrow, which is interesting that that's kind of his guy right now. Zay Flowers is starting to emerge. I would definitely be starting him. He has more of a wide receiver number two kind of feel to him, but again, that's definitely super solid. Same with Scary Terry. Ayuk here at number 16. I mean, he had that one breakout game after week 5. I was hoping maybe he finally got some of the rust off. He has a big contract, but for whatever reason, this year it seems like Purdy 49ers are always kind of flavor of the year. Right now, the flavor is definitely Kittle and Debo, with Ayuk being, I don't even know if I'd call him the third option. Again, any questions you guys have, put them down in the comments. Deontay Johnson, like him, and I would probably have him as a solid start. Same with Tank Dell, Devontae Smith. Let's get down to some of the ones you guys might be a little bit more questionable. Garrett Wilson. This week I'd probably start him just because of the fact you don't know how Adams is going to fit in. But the truth is, I can see Adams and Rodgers just telling him plays he knows from the Packers and him running those routes. That would be typical Rodgers and Devontae. So Garrett, I'm curious. If I had people I could put in front of him, I would put him on the bench. Jameson Williams has shown all he needs is 3 catches. He's been getting about 6 targets a game, so as long as he gets those 3 catches, he's a pretty solid flex option for you. Guys, talking about Brian Thomas having a blow up game. If you follow us, especially when we talk about dynasty or making trades, I was high on Brian Thomas, and I would say you probably miss your chance to be able to trade for him in dynasty. George Pickens, it'll be interesting with Russ. He's kind of in the same boat as DK with the volume's been there, just not been catching it. So I'll be curious to see if Russ is an improvement for him. Uh, for my take on that, I'm really shocked they went away from Fields. Fields looks to be the future, and you'd think they'd want to keep rolling with him because he's a young quarterback that potentially could grow and be the Steelers' quarterback for the next 10 years. Addison, he's got to show up, I believe, in this game against Detroit. Devontae Adams, they have him here at 27. I would kind of have him where Garrett Wilson is. I'd have them both around, that 20 mark, just for the fact that, like I said, I can see if he hasn't learned the playbook, Rodgers just tells him a play from the Packers and goes and runs it. This is a guy that was on waiver wires I would be looking at. Ladd McConkey. He's starting to get the volume, and as I said earlier in this video, Herbert was considered a top 5 quarterback just 2 years ago. So look for Ladd McConkey to start making that climb to be a solid top 20 wide receiver by the end of the season. Marvin Harrison Jr. coming back from concussion against, again, a very tough and underrated Chargers defense. I would look for Harbaugh to key up on him and basically try to make it where that Kyler has to pass to someone else. Xavier Worthy, I just don't like the boom bust in his game, particularly. But if you need to start him, I completely understand. Jackson Smith, Jigba, I like. Amari Cooper, I can see him having a pretty good game. I would start him in my flex if I needed to. Josh Downs, I'm actually sitting any wide receiver that's on Indy with Richardson back. The guy just, as I've said, my comp to him is Tim Tebow. I think that he's super athletic. He's very raw. He can chunk it a million miles, but he doesn't know how to throw with timing. Romeo Dubs, I think you can definitely move him up kind of in this range. He is the number 2 a lot of times. Same thing with Lockett. I talked about him last week in our video. Lockett gives you a solid floor of around 8 points. So if you really need someone for your wide receiver 3 or flex, I would plug in Lockett. He's there for that solid floor of 8 points. Christian Watson, to me, he's a better version of Xavier Worthy with the boomer bust. He can catch it a little bit better, and I would actually put him more up here and have Worthy just because they're both boomer bust, but he's a little bit better. Jerry Jeudy, Browns, he is the clear number 1 now. I don't know what to think of him. I would pick him up if I need wide receiver help, but I'm probably not starting him, just being honest. Jordan Whittingham, basically the rest of the Rams wide receiver core should be on notice as they're getting healthy. Cooper Kupp should be back this week or next week, so I'd put them on notice. Waddle's a sit until Tua gets back. DeAndre Hopkins, I know they made the quarterback switch. I picked him up in a few leagues to see if he kind of booms and has a connection with the new quarterback. Again, Pittman's a sit. Wilson, I like Wilson. I have him on my bench. I think he's someone that you can keep an eye on, especially during matchups. Anyone else down here that we need to talk about? Lazard for me, his arrow's down a lot with Adams coming, and Franklin. We'll go here. Franklin's arrow looks to be up after that last game, so maybe look out for him on the waiver wire. Moving on quickly, sorry guys, to the tight end position. George Kittle, that's an easy smash play. We'll see how Kelsey does. I know San Francisco, in my opinion, this is a statement game for them because they want to show that they can beat the champs. All right, Bowers, he's the only option there. So I know they have him at number 3. We'll see. I'll be curious to really see how he does when he's the only option. If he still keeps basically just being a monster when Adams is gone, start Keller. Chico Dusty. Oh, Kelsey. Yes. I'm starting Kelsey. I'm not loving it. I mean, the truth is he's one of your big dogs. I'd be curious what you have on the bench or waiver wire. Someone I would consider starting over Kelsey if, like, say someone dropped Kyle Pitts and you were able to scoop him up. Let's see here. Who else I've seen dropped? Tucker Kraft, Don Kincaid. I would start those guys with a little bit higher upside, but I couldn't say start him over, say, Zach Ertz. You have Likely and Pitts. Oh man, Likely. I love the upside. I wish they would get him the ball more. I think I'm going Pitts, being honest. Kyle Pitts is probably because that game looks like it's going to be a shootout, so it'll be volume based. Where the game with the 49ers and Chiefs, I definitely see that as a grinded out game. So thank you, Dusty, for the question. All right, back to where I was kind of talking about Bowers. If he's still the guy with Adams gone and then rolling all the coverage, think of him being the number 1 tight end going forward and definitely for Dynasty. McBride, I think it's one of those that, the hype was so high coming into it, but he's definitely a top 10. Sam Laporta needs to really get going. We'll see if he has another good game. Njoku, I know people are high on him. They're thinking that with Cooper gone, the volume's going to be there. Njoku's never been on the same page with Watson. I just don't like them together. I think if Njoku went to another team or if they started any other quarterback, I love him. Down to Zach Ertz. I kind of feel this as a security blanket floor. If you are in bye weeks or injury trouble, you can definitely start Zach Ertz. Same with Parkinson. Mark Andrews showed a little life the last 2 games. I actually picked him up on the waiver wires because I had a little bit of bye week issues because I have Ferguson. So Mark Andrews, I can definitely see being closer to 10. All right, what we got? Full PPR, pick 1. Love Cousins, pick 1. Flex, Chubb, Dubs, Shakir. All right, Love and Cousins, I am going to go with, let's see here, probably Jordan Love. Actually, I'll take that back. I'm sorry about that, Singer. I'm going to go with Kirk Cousins. I think that game's going to be a shootout, just being honest. And I don't see Seattle's defense being able to do much. So I would roll with Cousins in a high-scoring game. Chubb, Dubs, and Shakir. Chubb's 28 coming off his second major surgery. Everyone's expecting him to roll out and be the guy that he was. So out of that group, I'm going Dubs. Shakir, I think, falls too far behind with Cooper and then Kincaid becoming the number 2. And you also have just 3 or 4 other capable receivers. You have Holland, so I'm going with Dubs. So lock in Cousins and Dubs. That's my pick, but it's close with Love. All right, down here, any other kind of just security blankets? Pat Freiermuth, again, new quarterback. I think the one that I would be trying to grab if I have to would be Zach Ertz real quick. All right, guys, let me see here. Anything else I got for you? Defenses, quickly. The ones that are lower that you can think about starting Every single week, people are hating on the Green Bay Packers. Here they are at 12. And the Packers are the number 2 fantasy defense. I definitely will be excited to see how they hold up against a very good Texans team. Let's see anything else. Baltimore, I would have them lower. They are a bottom 10 defense this year. Miami versus Indy, that's one that you could grab and see, especially with Richardson. They'll have to key in on him, but we'll see how that goes. Any other last ones to try to tell you that's lower down here? Uh, Not really, guys. The bottom one, I mean, people have already probably scooped them up. The Commanders, uh, Atlanta versus Seattle. I don't really like that. So probably my desperation grab would be the Dolphins. All right, on to the bets real quick. Okay, Texans, Packers. Gotta go with my heart. My heart says Packers. All right, so I'll tell you Packers and money line. But the other thing, let me read just real quickly, guys. Sorry about that. All right, Packers. There we go. A little bit more out. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. All right, zooming in more. All right, so on this, the Packers and the uh, Texans. I'm definitely going to go with the Packers. Just my heart tells me to. I think I'm going to go with the over 47.5. That's not too high of an over, so I'm going to go with the over. Next, we have the Titans and the Bills. I think it's the Bills. 9.5, though, I'm not touching that line. That is way too many points for any team. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more, guys. There we go. Nope, too much, too much. There we go. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so again, 9.5. I'm not touching that. Bills in the money line, but with that minus 500, I think you have to build them. Am I cooked? Started Ramondre this morning, ETN. I didn't realize. Oh, what do you have on your bench? All right, Aiden, let's see what we can do to help you. Do you have high upside guys? Xavier Worthy, Christian Watson. These are the type of games where you have that I advocate going for boomer bust guys. So you need those big guys. So Xavier Worthy, Watson, that said, I will even flip back over, try to give you some help because I understand being in that situation. All right, lower level guys, like I said, Worthy, McConkey, because you got to be going for guys that have huge upside. Pierce with Richardson being in, we know he loves connecting with him on those deep bombs if he's available. Watson, there's 3 for you at wide receiver. Who else do we have that can have huge blow up games? And the deeper I get, the less Pierce should be available. That's someone to look at. That's honestly who I can think of for you at the wide receiver position, unless you want to go super Hail Mary with Hopkins. Let's see here. Yeah, McConkey, definitely go McConkey. That's why you might have to drop someone. I mean, Tutu Atwell, you really need to look at the guys who are boomer busts. So that's what I'm saying. Tutu Atwell would be one of them. Worthy, as I said, I would love Christian Watson. Someone sent me a trade. I get Tyreek Hill and Pollard. I give them Kupp and Kyren. I already have many great running backs. My wide receiver 1 is Kupp. 2 is supposed to come back next week. Tyreek and Pollard, Kupp and Kyren. Ooh, I mean, it's close, man. I like when it's close. You are getting the best player. Oh, you don't give up Kyren. I'm sorry. Then I give up Kupp in. Don't give up Kyren. If you'll read, I'll make it simple. It's Tyreek versus Kupp. Correct. Yeah, completely agree with you, Aiden. To quickly answer this, Tyreek's the best player in the trade, and that's usually how I like to view and start it with, especially if it's close. So you are getting the best wide receiver, but what he's saying, Kyren, that's what kind of hung me up is Kyren. He has that backfield to himself, where Pollard is the number 1, but it is a little bit of a split. So I would see if I can rework it and somehow not give up Kyren, but anything where I can maybe get Tyreek for Cooper Kupp, I would definitely try to get Tyreek if you need him. So that's my advice. Thank you, Aiden. Aiden, running backs, almost the same scenario. You need the home run hitters. So that's where you're looking at. Even, let's go down here. The guy who blew up last week, where are we at? I apologize everyone for scrolling. Um, so I'm looking at Tracy because he has that huge home run upside. I'm looking at, let's see here, anyone else? The running back from Tampa Bay that went off last week. I'm blanking on the names, but Aiden, that's who I'd probably go with. All right, guys, let me quickly go through. We have a couple minutes to finish this rundown on the bets. Again, Bills not touching 9.5. That's a huge spread. Dolphins, Colts, they have it at 3.5. I like the Dolphins, so take the Dolphins plus the 3. Eagles, Giants. I'm actually going to go with the Giants to pull the upset. So I'm going to say the Giants in the money line. It's only a 3-point spread. So take the Giants and the plus 140. And I also like the over the 41.5 points. Lions, Vikings. Love this game. Want to see how it goes. I think the Lions win. Lions only have a 1.5 on the spread. So definitely take the Lions, I think, and the money line, which is 105. Then we have the Bengals and Browns. I think the Bengals easily win. 5.5. Yeah, go the Bengals minus the 5.5. Seattle and the Falcons. I do see the Falcons winning, but I don't know if it's going to be kind of a walk-off. So take the Falcons and the money line. Panthers and Commanders. Definitely take the Commanders. I think the easier thing to touch on this is going to be the over/under. It's at 51.5. I'd still take the under. I'd still take the over, as the Commanders have a very good offense, and the red baby rifle, the BB gun, Andy Dalton has made that offense at least average. Here we go down to the Raiders and Rams. Raiders, I mean, they're just toast right now. For anyone that loves Raiders, I'm sorry. I go the Rams, and I'm just 7.5. That's so high. If I can tease it to like 4, that's probably what I do is the Rams and like -4. Chiefs and 49ers. I've been saying this for a bit. I think the 49ers are looking to make a statement, so I am definitely taking the 49ers. Finally, in the night games, you have the Jets and Steelers. I don't like either of these, honestly. Rodgers with Adams, Russ coming in. I can see locker room drama. Go Aaron Rodgers. I'm not liking it, though, if you just made me. And then that's it, guys. That's where we are at. So thank you for everyone that tuned in. Appreciate it. If you have any other questions or comments, you're more than welcome to hit us up, and we'll talk to you guys next week.